So I'm gonna hit record now, and
Wait, wait,
we
wait, wait, wait. Can I swear, or is that going to be a problem? Are you going to have to edit that out later?
you can swear as much as you like, but please refrain. We're instituting a don't say bill here because I
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
go
okay.
through and listen to like two
Are we
hours of
allowed to
audio.
talk about
Don't use the M word.
fights so long as we do not use the M word?
The M word. Use a euphemism.
All right.
Cool.
I love that it's the M word, by the way. That's so fucking awful and stupid.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe we should censor that.
Mm.
I'm just pointing to the sensibilities of the host and your audience.
Well, I'm just concerned that people might mishear that. You know what I mean? Because it sounds very similar to another thing.
Mm.
That is true. I'll just not try to say it.
What kind of podcast is this?
It's a bad one, I can tell you that.
Mm.
So we have a super spreader of an event here for you today, folks. There's been an extraordinary session of the United Nations Kickboxing Council, and here we are. So I guess we should have roll call. We have finally the man who, I guess this is all his fault, really. Everybody's favorite Russian Vietnamese man, Karaev fan. How you doing?
Howdy. I don't know how you got those two nationalities, but glad to be here finally. I think I asked you if you had interest in podcasts, and then I flaked out and deleted Twitter for about 6 months. So thanks for kicking this off.
Yeah, it is. It is an unfortunate origin story, and you have made my life immeasurably worse.
Good to know. That's all I aspire to.
Okay, we also have Luke of No Fixed Abode.
Yeah, this is my one podcast appearance of the year, so I hope it's a good one.
And we also have LJ of thefighter.net.
Hey guys, excited to be talking about the fight today.
The match, not the fight. It's a very important
The
distinction.
match.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think I got tickets.
Really? Because they went on
No
general
way.
sale today, right?
Yeah. And I say I think because I'm putting all my trust in a scalper I found 25 minutes after the tickets went online, but a substantial amount of money has been sent to an escrow account, so I just had my fingers crossed.
Well,
So that's no vacations for the next 5 years for you then, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm buying these at twice the sticker cost.
Oh my god.
The tickets went on sale at 10 a.m. this morning, right? And then there were 5 places I could have gone. Every single one of them, I had connectivity issues because people were racing to them. By the time I got to, the actual checkout menu of any of them, the only seats available were the 2 million yen second row seats. So, I'm putting all my faith in the secondary market at the moment. It's crazy demand.
well, somebody who will be able to take vacations for at least now, if not the next 5 years, joining us from his travels, the Karate Man.
And we're back.
We are back. So, what fight does anyone want to speak about first? There are 9 so far. Allegedly, there's probably more down the pipe. Smart Money is on Noidi, finally fighting one of the Kaitos. Anybody have anything they, particularly lights a fire in their loins here?
I don't know. I feel like we should just get the big one out the way, right? I mean, I feel like if we're talking about anything before this, it would just feel like, everybody's just waiting for us to talk about the one. Obviously, we could talk about the one for the entire length of the podcast, probably. I don't know if we want to do that or we just want to treat them all equally. But I'd be fine starting with the main event if everybody else is.
So the main event, as you may have heard, there's these 2 guys. I don't know. They've seemed to come out of nowhere. Never heard of them before. Tenshin Nasukawa, Takeru, some guys from somewhere. I don't know. There's some stuff going on about the weight and the rules, and you could see from the press photos that the fighters seem pretty cordial with each other, but the promoters, Ito, Nakamura, Sakakibara seems a bit more happy, but the other 2 look like they want to die every time they're together. So from the rules, it seems like a lot of stuff has gone Tenshin's way. a little bit has gone Takeru's way. The weight, obviously, big thing. They're kind of different in weight these days, but Takeru's dropping down a bit. But there is some intrigue here. It's essentially Rise rules, but the rest of the card is going to be a different rule set. So some weirdness going on. And obviously the elephant in the room is that after building this up for 10 years now, 3-round fight. Great.
Yeah, maybe just to like catch up some of the less aware folks on the situation at the moment, right? So there was a couple month period since the fight was announced and until the specifics of the rules that came out where everyone was talking about what the arrangement was going to be because we just knew about the weight class 58 kgs and then getting able to rehydrate for a day and then having a weigh-in the next day. And so the fighters can be 62 kgs on the fight day. But the narrative that a lot of the smart folks have been saying is that if it's a 5-rounder, if it's, weigh-ins day of that's early in the day, that should favor Takeru, given that he's a bigger guy. He's a guy that is a bit more of a slow starter. But, now what's come out is that not only are we dealing with Rise rules, but it's going to be a 3-round fight, which in theory should favor tension since he typically takes the first round of every fight he's ever been in. And then there's also a weigh-in the day of that's happening just 3 hours before the fight. So, it's probably going to be the case that even while the match is going on, Takeru is going to be in a somewhat dehydrated situation until he does the weigh-in. So it's been a bit of drama, right?
Yeah, but I feel like
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we should push back on one specific thing here, which is that I know tension's been in 3-rounders pretty often recently, but
Yeah, the rounds, I don't agree with that.
yeah, Takeru has fought 2 5-rounders in his life when he was busy bringing Koki around Thailand in his suitcase. Like, no, it would not make. I mean, he's in good shape. I'm pretty sure he could go 5, but the way his style is, he's like spent by the end of 3 rounds. That's just the way the round structure is in K1, and his entire career as a pro is sort of built around that. I think the round structure favors him, but I think if it goes to a decision, there's a high likelihood that things have not gone his way.
Yeah, I mean, agree to disagree. I'm just parroting shit that I'm just parroting stuff that some of the other folks have said. But it is probably worth keeping in mind that Tension has only gone to the 5th round like 3 times in his career as well. And those were against Suakim, Ratang, and Nashiro, Murakoshi. And those were all super competitive fights where he sort of faded in the later half of the fight. So, I can see it going both ways. But point taken.
Well, Luke brought up something extremely scientific, which was his performance on Sasuke.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, Takeru. I mean, he has a storied history on that show, as far as I know. I think he's had, is it 2 or 3 goes on it? And as far as I can remember, his last one before his recent one was in 2018, and yeah, he kind of fell off. I think he failed like 2 or 3 stages before. So yeah, maybe he is past his prime if the Sasuke measure is to go by. But no, one thing seriously, I was wondering about: could this fight go to a draw, and would there be extension rounds? I don't know that.
I think it is 1 extension round with a must decision.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a sudden death round.
Because we might see that. I mean, like very possibly.
Well, I think, it depends on who's going to be judging it. I don't think there's any detail about that. But certainly...
That's such an interesting portion of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I mean, in K1 recently, it's like an extension round has just been baked into any of the big fights, regardless of how they actually go.
Like
first round's always a draw.
If Taito Gunji is losing, there will be an extension. What? I didn't say that.
I mean, let's be real here, right? Like, the judging in any promotion is crooked, but they're all crooked in different ways, I feel. I feel K1 is crooked, like the Yakuza is crooked, where there is a set of hidden rules that you're supposed to play by, and only a handful of, constant favorites are in the know of what they're supposed to be doing. Rise is crooked, like the mob is crooked, where they have specific made men, and if Akari is losing a fight to someone she shouldn't be in in a semifinal of a tournament she's supposed to win, they just give it to her. So, I think Sakakibara was saying he might be considering open scoring. He might be considering having not just 3 judges, but 5. But none of that has been decided yet.
Okay, on that tip, like 5 judges did not seem to solve things in its showtime. And the last time I really recall open scoring in kickboxing was the last iteration of K1 from FEG. And if you remember the Zambitis Shahid fight, they had open scoring for that. And it was like some impossibly wide margin going into the 3rd round. And then they announced a score that was completely at odds with what they had shown on the screen before. So, open scoring, it exists theoretically, but that stuff is written in pencil.
I mean, they introduced it, I think, 2008, and one of the first fights I got judged was Masato versus Sato, which is one of the most controversial decisions of all time. So it's a nice thing in theory.
Yeah, I mean, Glory, of course, being the nerds that they are, have had 5 judges in open scoring, for the last 10 years, basically, as far as I know. And their judges is a complete mess as well. I mean, they've had, I think, multiple high-profile fights where the open scoring that we've seen on screen has not been what actually was read out on the scorecards as well. So it's not really a solution. It's just like a repackaging of the same problems, in my opinion. I think if we look at this fight as 2 entities meeting, like we see like in big boxing matches. Normally, the way they do it is they will have 1 judge from one fighter's home country, 1 judge from the others, and then 1 as a neutral party. So I don't know if with this one they would do a K1 judge, a Rise judge, and then some other clown. But like you said, we've got really no idea how this is going to go because there's no due process. There's no sanctioning body that's laid down structures for this to follow. It's all being kind of made up as they go along, it looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, since the death of FEG anyway, the officials that they use seem to be from a pretty broad coalition of primarily guys from and who have previously competed in many cases in the quote unquote other sport. So it's not exactly cream of the crop, best of the best kind of guys.
Yeah. So on the 5 judges thing, so like Kyokushin Karate has always had 5 judges, and in the history that I've seen, it doesn't do anything to stop political decisions at all. So if it was going to go crooked, like we're talking about, it does nothing to solve that. The only thing it tends to do is if you get 1 judge who's completely incompetent, doesn't know what he's looking at, he can tip it to a split decision one way or the other when it's just 3, but he can't do that when there's 5. So all it does is if you get 1 judge who's like Cecil Peoples, who's just completely incompetent, it can counterbalance him. But in terms of political decisions, it does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's very statistical, right? It's hopefully with the law of big numbers, you can cancel out random stupidity, but you can't cancel out bias.
Exactly. That's all it does.
The law of big numbers doesn't tend to apply to a sample set of 5.
True. I mean, just off the top of your guys' heads, I'd be keen to get a roundtable vote on who you guys think is taking the match.
Want to pick a winner?
Yeah, pick a winner. Gun to your head. Or
Tension.
samurai sword to your head, I guess.
I go Tension.
Yeah, I'll just shade Tension.
I think Tucker, just because Tension seems like he doesn't even give a shit. Like he's like, I gotta do this before I can quit this job.
I say Tucker.
Okay, well...
Tiebreaker, Karaev. What's your pick?
Tension. I mean, just looking at where Takeru's at now, like his Insta posts where he's looking like a skeleton and saying he's withdrawing from social media. Like, the guy's been prepping for this for what, like 8 months or something? I think it's just too much.
I mean, we're assuming at this point that he makes it to the ring and doesn't break his hand or his face or his knees or something. And he's, I mean, he's pretty smartly covered himself in bubble wrap to to the extent that he has gone and hidden himself away in a gym that is under a set of stairs in some apartment building instead of being in Crest and getting everything smashed.
Yeah, he's been training hard for 8 months, but Tension's been going to Soaplands and not giving a shit. I'm not sure that's a better strategy.
Well, I think Tenshin does give a shit about what is coming up on the horizon, and I think it would be like devastating for his boxing ambitions if he doesn't go there undefeated, because if people actually look at the content of his fights the last few years, it's not going to sell boxing people a lot. So he really needs that shine, because the one boxing thing he did that I thought was impressive was against whichever of the Kameda brothers that was, but everything else has looked kind of terrible.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just having the undefeated tag is going to make a huge difference, right? So I think he does care. It's just there's the extended weight cut, since Takeru thought this was happening on New Year's Eve. So he was basically already starving himself since October, and now it's June. So how long can someone actually be in that much of a caloric deficit? Because you might have read some of his recent interviews, but he's having 1 meal a day for the last 4 or 5 months or something. I don't think that's really sustainable.
It is payback for keeping Leona Pettis on weight for 10 months.
Well, we can talk about Leona Pettis later today. Sorry, Luke, were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I think the point that the Dogman was intimating towards there, it's something that you've said consistently, I think, for quite a while, which is like why it was so hard to believe this fight was gonna happen, was because there's so little upside for Tenshin in this fight compared to what he stands to lose. He stands to lose potentially millions and millions of dollars in a lucrative boxing career that would be kneecapped by him, taking an L in his last kickboxing fight. And what does he stand to gain, really? His position as to where it is right now is not going to really be changed all that much, right? In terms of he's already, massively famous, like, an A-list like sports celebrity. He's already, going to start boxing within the next few months anyway. One more win in a high-risk scenario like this is not going to really like push him any further than he's already got. So the fact that he has taken this fight with so many, potential downsides and so few upsides for him personally, obviously, we can look at the industry and the culture and the sport as a whole, and obviously there's massive upsides there. But for him individually, he's about to leave the sport and go to a completely different one with completely different institutions, a completely different audience, a completely different, culture and history to it. He's not going to really be taking all that much benefit from this fight to that one compared to all the other fights he's had previously that were much safer for him. So the fact that he has taken it is it's kind of hard to read, like you said, with his performances of late being like semi-reluctant. He looks bored. A lot of the fights that he's been thrown into by Rising on like 2 days' notice have just been so weird. It's hard to even draw anything from him. He's like boxing 3 guys in 3 rounds. He's boxing, giant overweight Takanori Gomi. It's like, how do you competitively stay driven and sharp when you're like, you've got no like full momentum through those kind of fights? And how do you, as an observer, make reads on like his state as a performer when the fights they make no sense and you can't really draw much from them because they're just so random and all over the place. It's a really, really hard fight to read, I think psychologically from his perspective. I think for Takeru, it's very, very simple and easy because he's kind of kept the same mindset and approach for years now as wanting to, obviously make kickboxing great again. And he's made all the sacrifices, as far as the negotiations are concerned, which is what I expected, really. He is the B-side, unfortunately for him. The position that he's in with regards to Tenshin stardom has relegated himself to that. But yeah, as to how that all impacts on like what the fight's going to look like, it's still. I'm shading Tenshin just because I find it very hard to imagine him losing. It's just very difficult to like think of scenarios in which he's not going to like shade 2 of these 3 rounds through his his elusiveness, how fast he is, his ability to just like mitigate whatever these opponents want to do, even with his new style, which is altogether more kind of like he's much more like kind of set nowadays. He's not throwing kind of like unpredictable kicks and combinations like he used to. He's very much standing in front of somebody, trying to like counter them, move off the line, throw 1s and 2s, not really experimenting as much as he used to. But I don't know. It's a very, very hard fight to kind of get a handle on, I think, partly because the two competitors have got so much going on, and partly because, like you said, the whole scenario that's built to create this has been so weird and difficult to kind of follow. But yeah, I do think as far as the fight's concerned, the safe bet is tension. But I'd be for the record, I'd be overjoyed if he lost. I don't need to see him win. It doesn't do anything for me. He's already the superstar in the fight. So like, as far as I'm concerned, if he goes in here, takes Takeru's, obviously Takeru's lost, but effectively Takeru might as well be, undefeated, and he takes all that to boxing, that doesn't help me out. So I'd be fine if tension lost. I just struggle to see him doing that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to be clear, the official position of a podcast about kickboxing is that, you can say that tension is going to win, but if you want him to win, you are a bad person.
I agree with everything Luke said, and I don't understand why his father would let him take this fight. If I was his dad or his trainer, I wouldn't, because like he said, there's no upside.
Yeah, I mean, there's been rumors, right? And he's implied that folks in his corner have been pretty hesitant about him taking this fight at all. There's probably two ways you can view it. One, which I am subscribing a bit more to, is that he's been pretty clear about wanting to grow kickboxing as a sport. So yeah, I know that's cool to not hate, but sort of be jaded by him leaving kickboxing. But it could be, in his eyes, a way to pay back kickboxing by at least paying off this one fight for hardcore fans. The other way you can look at this is just that, the money is just so lucrative here, because
that's true. Yeah.
The figure that's been thrown around, and I mentioned this to you previously, Luke, is that it's probably going to be a multi-million purse between the two of them. I'd wager it's probably going to be at least 3 to 5 million for tension alone, just based off of the ticket prices here. So, if you're really sure that you can actually just beat Takeru 9 times out of 10, then why not get that money, right?
That's true. That's something we haven't really talked about, but the fact that this is a quote unquote big money fight for both these guys, that's a huge thing to consider as well. I mean, I imagine both dudes are going to be taking home more from this fight than they have done in their entire careers up to this point put together. It's the economics of it. I think, that's a really important point to touch on. How much bigger this is than everything they've been a part of up to this point is it's something we shouldn't overlook.
Yeah, the ticket prices have been insane, and they've been doing these like GameStop pre-order bonus lotteries with different retailers, and they only just went on like general sale today, and people have been getting scammed out of everything trying to get hold of these tickets. It's been a real like hot button thing. And the one thing I think this impacts the most on these fighters, particularly anyone on this card, is nobody has to hustle at their gym, hustle at local businesses, like try and sell tickets to their supporters to make the little bit of extra scratch. No one has to do that. It's all gone already. It's all out of their hands.
I think one of the other things is that this could probably be one of the first real cases of pay-per-view success in Japan. So the owner of K1, Yabuki, recently had his first public interview ever with the CEO of Cyber Agent, who runs Abima. And about 60-70% of that discussion was all around how he hopes to create the pay-per-view model over here. If you just consider the number of people who are going to be watching this and wanting to look at actually every fight, since every fight is worth watching, it's gonna almost certainly break the pay-per-view records for anything sold here ever, which is still fairly low. I think that's held by Ryzen, and they did 80,000 pay-per-views. I wouldn't be surprised if this does 2 to 3 times that, even with double the prices. And if you consider also that the TV experience over here for watching fights is just absolutely horrible. The match is only going to get a 2-hour time slot, right? For Fuji TV. And probably half of that is just going to be hype for Tenshin versus Takeru.
Yeah, I have a question about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that Fuji is going to Big Brother Abhima and like run a digest version of all of the highlights of the undercard, or do you think they'll be nixed from doing that?
Oh, they would. But the thing is that I don't know if you've seen live Fuji TV broadcasts over here, but they run with a tape delay, even if they're running day up. So if you actually want to see the fights live, then you have to get to pay-per-view.
Huh. And another interesting thing about so Cyber Agent like bought a share of K1 during the height of the pandemic. So this seems to be kind of an accidental success story for Yabuki.
Yeah, I mean, so I can only base his character off that one interview he did with Cyber Agent, right? And 30-40% of it was him trying to convince us that he's not a scary person. Like, he literally relates himself to this idea of, the scary bouncer behind the cabaret club that comes out to do business. But he says that, hey, that's a myth that he's scary, right? So, but anyways, he does strike me as someone that's very acutely aware of the business realities here. He was actually pretty clear that even since the beginning of K1, he has not been putting a TV terrestrial broadcast in his point of view. He's always been trying to push for a heavier monetization model like pay-per-view and subscription. So you say accidental, but I think everything I've seen about the guy makes him seem like a really competent businessman.
Well, I think, the other stuff he's got his hands in, like particularly, what is it, the PR company. It's kind of surprising how little he uses that to juice his own product, but equally, like, you look at the quote unquote sponsors that they attract, and there's not been a lot of organic interest in K1. But I don't know. I just think
but that's like here's the thing, right? He's the model of having big name national sponsors to do national wide TV. That was a model for old school K1, but they topped out at 25 million to 50 million revenue per year, which is more or less what Ryzen is getting now. It's a tiny, tiny business compared to what the UFC is getting, right?
Yeah.
And the old school days was that you might do a giant TV broadcast and you might be able to get 40% ratings, but almost nobody is interested. So you're just skimming the top and getting a buck off a customer. So you might have 40 million active viewers, but they only give you a buck every year. So you're ending up with 40, 50 million. The thing that they're trying to pivot towards is, hey, even if we have just 1 million real fans, if they're just giving us $10 per month by dedicated targeted ads or subscriptions or pay-per-views, then you can easily double or triple the size of that business. So I wouldn't put too much stock on the sponsorship, actually.
There's one thing I have to ask, because my mind is kind of blown here. Are you telling me that during the days of K1 Max, they didn't make a huge amount of money running the same Fitz ad like 5 times in a row, and then like one weird, inscrutable 30-second spot about JFK?
I mean, have you seen... People have stories, right? Because almost all of the sponsorship money that came from old school K1 was from Pachinko, because like Fields was sponsoring them for the last 10 years or so of their existence. And, Masato and the others have a lot of stories about getting perks, like being able to go to special private penthouses that the pachinko companies got for them. But Masato himself, he was only making $500K per fight, even against Kid Yamamoto on TV. So, and getting 30% ratings or something. So Tenshin's gonna more than quadruple his earnings just on this one fight.
Well, of course, a business being run by allegedly international government connected Zainichi man definitely has no connection with pachinko whatsoever.
I'm just curious if karaev fan knows. Are they going to do some stupid shit, do you think, like Tiget, where they block it so only Japanese MasterCards can buy the pay-per-view? Are they going to do some stupid shit like that? What do you think?
If K1 does it, yeah. I don't know. Rise has done international pay-per-views and international free watches before, right? It sort of concerns me that none of the pay-per-view details has come out already, which either suggests to me that they're going to jack up the price immensely to like $50 to $100 range, or, you know, and if they do that, then they might not have an international pay-per-view at all.
I mean,
Good luck to you guys.
Yeah, my hope is that this is officially under the banner of Cyber Agent, basically. Like, they have no branding from K1, no branding from Rise. It seems to be like being led by them as a pay-per-view product to like build out their pay-per-view capability, which they've been trying to do for a while. And I hope, because like if you access the Abema app from overseas, it is in English. They do have like English versions of this. So it's something they're aware of. They know that a world exists outside of Japan. It's not like a Sakoku sports broadcast. So yeah, I'm hopeful. But the silence and the fact that traditionally K1 have always like region blocked everything, including their like press conferences on Abema, makes me slightly worried.
Well, some of Bama shows you can watch without a region lock on it. Like K1 goes out of its way, even on Abema, to be assholes and block it. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect, and I don't know, that is due to the fact that K1 is not theirs. They, well, maybe K1 Japan Group, and they have a suspicious way of referring to it all the time. Maybe that is theirs, but I do suspect there is some international problems there. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could always happen that next month Chattery buys the international K1 global name, and K1 Japan has to rebrand itself. Who knows, right? There's just so many weird things.
Yeah, I did promise that I wouldn't go too deep into business on this one because the true crime genre is already oversaturated. So let's talk something else. So do you want to go into detail on this fight, or do you want to go to the undercard?
I think we can do a roundhouse on the undercards, right? There's, 8-9 fights. I think they're all really good.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, like why this is like such an exciting thing. Like the potential that this had, just like smashing these two rosters together, was really exciting, and it was more exciting than the main event. And time went on, and I was getting like kind of worried about what they do, but like everything they announced, with the exception maybe of one fight, was just fantastic. So I mean, so far, I'm just...
It's incredible. I think the last time something like this happened was 2009, when two organizations from the sport we should not refer to did a cross event promotion card. That was Dynamite 2009. Actually, there's a lot of parallels between that and this card, to be frank, since that was a card Masato retired on. And they did a Dream versus Sengoku card to sort of build up the mid-tier talents while the main guys were retiring. Thankfully, I think the undercard for this is 100 times better than what we got back then. So I can really see this as being one of the key events that pushes one or two of these guys up to superstardom.
Noiri fought on that card, by the way, just to...
I was there, and I had a lot of fun. Noiri won on that card.
Yeah, just to like underscore how fucking long that guy's been around. That's pretty insane.
It'll be criminal if he's not on the card, like he's not on Beyond Kick pound for pound rankings.
I mean, the rumor is...
I don't want to see him blink, man. Go on, Dogman.
I was gonna say the rumor is he, and to the extent that they are like continually pushing this in Gong, which is owned by the K1 group, they're saying, oh yeah, basically like nod wink, he's definitely gonna fight Kaito, but they also have a habit of lying recently, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we'd all love to see him on the card, obviously, but as it stands, I mean, this card is just an embarrassment of riches. I'm honestly, I'm more in, yeah, I kind of am more into the undercard than I am in the main event because, like, it's just seeing all these fights that like would just normally be like ridiculous and impossible fantasy matchups actually like confirmed and concrete. Like Shiro and Masashi Kimura, like, are you kidding me? Like, it's really, really like they didn't just do crossover fights for the sake of it. They really matched them really well. Like they got the top guys and they put them in with other top guys for the most part.
Absolutely, they're definitely trying to win, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. They're bringing out the big guns. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, like Suzuki versus Kaneko and Shiro versus Kumura. Like you could just put those alone in with a bunch of like crap matchups, and I would eat that shit all day. But like everything is good, if not great.
Yeah, it's really, really like fantastic stuff. So I mean, I feel like the unofficial co-main event of the card is kind of that Suzuki Kaneko matchup, the one you just mentioned there. I think that's the one that most people have been kind of salivating over. I don't know what kind of like card order there's going to be on the night, but I think that's going to be a really, really hot fight. Maybe it'll go the distance, maybe not, but it's just going to be just astonishingly violent all the way, I think.
Yeah, like I love Suzuki, but if he does his usual, if he doesn't fight the way that he fought Tenshin, if he just runs straight at Kaneko, like winging punches and getting hit, it's a problem.
Yeah, Kaneko, like, he has a very, very like tough face, as we saw in that Masashi Kimura fight. Like he basically lost every minute of that fight, aside from the moment where he clocks Kimura with a giant overhand right and hits him down. Suzuki has historically been, like you said, maybe overzealous and putting offense before defense. So it does kind of like almost set itself up for Suzuki doing a lot of great work and then eventually just getting greedy and that completely ruining his night. But either way, yeah, I cannot wait for that one.
I'd say that if Kaneko loses that fight, it will be almost as devastating to K1 as Takeru losing. Because K1's in a pretty precarious state right now. What with Igawa getting derailed and Takei moving on to boxing. Kaneko, though, I feel he actually has the potential to become the next star of the promotion. Not only is he from Silver Wolf, he has that sort of bad boy look. He has that sort of reckless aggression that Masato in 2002 had. I can really see him becoming the star of the promotion, but this is such a tough fight since he's still a rough fighter. Anyone with a good straight punch can still steal rounds off of him, but we'll see, right?
Okay, now I want to interject here and get official predictions from everybody on the question that's on everybody's lips with this card. So, there's been stuff with the rules and stuff about the broadcast. And obviously, K1 and Rise differ in two very stark ways on the subject of tattoos. Do we see Kaneko's gigantic snake tattoo? Yes or no?
I hope we do, but who knows, right? I mean, if it gets censored on a beam of TV, it's probably going to be censored on Fuji as well. So I would say probably we're going to be denied that, unfortunately.
Same.
For a pay-per-view this important, I think they're just going to be too skittish to not do it.
I don't know. I feel because if we're going to have highlights on Fuji TV, they're probably not going to want to risk having the tattoo on. So I'd say they'd hide it.
Well, good news for spray-on latex manufacturers.
Yeah, let's get Kenta Hayashi on this card as well. You know what I'm saying? They can double dip.
Well, as long as they don't put a Tatsuki Shinatsuka on, it's a real. Well, no, there was one guy who was like jokingly pushing to get on this card, Ren Hitamoto, and man, covering that guy's tattoos.
Yeah, Lukia denied it, which is unfortunate. I think it would have been actually pretty fun.
They should just censor that whole fight, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he could theoretically show up in like one of those green screen suits I could just put another guy in there in post.
Yeah, do you think we see Rukia on this card anyway, or do you think that was like the only like idea they had for him? Because I heard he's been saying he's going to be on it, but I don't know if it was just in the context of that fight or just.
I think he's on the outside looking in because K1 had to like post a public apology about ticket sales, saying that they would not be available through fighters because he was like talking about trying to sell tickets or something. So I don't think.
I think Rukia, he himself mentioned he's only looking forward to the Nori fight, and he's not interested in June. Obviously, this was before the whole Ren Hiramoto dynamic happened. I'd imagine, though, given the fact that he has such a following, K1 is trying to pressure him on. But unless Hiramoto is available, I don't really see who he fights on the side of shoot boxing or Rise or what have you. Maybe if they can get one of the Asakura brothers to fight him in a mixed rules matchup, that'll be cool. But I don't think either of them is up for available on June.
Okay, so I guess we should move on to Shiro versus Kumura. I know Shiro was in that 53 kg tournament, but even though Kumura didn't officially win the last GP he was in, I felt like he deserved a draw, and I felt like he would have won the extension round. And I feel like whoever wins this fight is sort of unofficially the best guy at 55 kg.
Yeah, this is going to be a great one. It's almost a bit like it's like boxer versus kicker a bit in this fight. I mean, Masashi's got great hands, very slick, hits very hard. Shiro's he's just a problem for everybody. I mean, the guy only loses to the very, very elite. And even then, that Kazane loss, like you said, was an extremely contentious one.
In which he had two broken hands. Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah, both his mandibles were fractured there, and he had to go back to his home planet to get them replaced, I think. But in his last fight against Ruiata, he iced him bad with a head kick. Like it was clean as anything. So he's coming off a great showing. And Masashi Kimura, he's coming off the loss to Kaneko, but to me at least, he, in my opinion, he won that fight. I don't know how all you feel, but it was certainly not a loss that damaged his standing in any way. He looked phenomenal all night long.
Agreed.
Yeah, so this one's going to be as good as the prior fight. I think it's just fantastic. I can't wait for it.
It's also just a fantastic thematic matchup, Not that it's both that, they're both the premier technicians in their division.
Battle of the bridesmaids.
Yeah.
And also that they sort of had really proportioned eyes.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I like Shiro just because of inactivity on Kimura's part, and he is coming off a loss. Though, I mean, he had a good showing. He didn't look sloppy or anything, but I think with a fight this close and with this stylistically strange of a matchup, especially has Kimura really fought many guys like Shiro? I don't think he has, and he's coming off a pretty long layoff in between. I think that's just going to be a little too much, especially with how active and how much Shiro's found his power lately. He's been dropping guys and putting them on their ass lately in ways he typically doesn't.
I think the closest guy Kimura fought to Shiro is the some of the Thai guys he's fought. Did he fight Dao Sankang?
Yeah, he did, who is now going to fight Koji in his retirement bout, apparently.
Yeah. So that might actually be the closest matchup.
Yeah, and to me, that's not as high level as Shiro. So I think Shiro will edge a decision on that one. That's my prediction for it, just based on inactivity. And I think with a guy that weird from the style that Kimura's so used to K1 rules where everyone knows that they get an extra $3 in a Skittle if they go for the kill. He's not as used to fighting guys like Shiro who are okay with waiting 2 rounds to get where they need to be and to not have guys just stand in front of him. I think it's going to be enough to throw him off is my prediction on that.
Well, this actually, I forgot until you just mentioned it. there's a little wrinkle in the rules for the undercard, which might favor Shiro because he has fought in Thailand, which I believe they're going to be allowing one clinch strike.
Yeah, you can catch in one strike.
No. Like that's for the main event, but apparently for the undercard, the rules are going to be different, and they will allow like knees in the clinch.
Okay, that's news to me. I actually didn't know that.
I mean, maybe my brain's being killed by COVID, and I made the whole thing up, but I think that's correct.
That's what I heard, but the official rules have not yet been released, so we'll see, right? Personally, I'm just going to go Kimura. I don't think... I get that he hasn't fought many folks like Shiro, but Shiro himself hasn't fought as many folks who have that sort of long-reaching straight boxing that Masashi offers. I'd imagine Kimura can still steal 2 rounds off of him.
Yeah, I think weirdly almost like the one of the closest analogies on Shiro's resume to Masashi in terms of style, in terms of guys who like come forward, throw lots of punches, like, you know, lead with the jab a lot. Kazane in that fight basically kind of fought like that a bit, you know, throwing a lot of combinations, being kind of like a volume guy on his bike. Now, I don't think Kazane has the kind of like pop that Masashi does. He's not really as devastating with any of his strikes. He throws a lot of like, he's like shoe shining a lot, and he's just trying to like win rounds on activity rather than like really trying to like kill guys. But yeah, that was a very, very close fight. I do think what Pathfinder said about the fact that Kimura is coming off like a pretty high damaging night quite recently, where he fought 3 times and then took a huge bomb from Kaneko in the last round, or the second round, sorry, in their fight. That might be something to consider. I think Shiro came out of that fight basically untouched. I don't know. It's really hard for me to like meaningfully separate them. I might just shade Shiro though. I think he may just be strong enough kicking and in the clinch to get this one done. But yeah, I think it's a really, really tough one to call for me.
So real quick round table. Does everyone agree with me that quality-wise, this is the best fight on the card?
I'd agree with you that this is the hardest fight to call. Personally, I think Suzuki versus Kaneko features the bigger potential stars.
Yeah, I mean, I think judging by that metric, the best, most quality fight on the undercard is clearly Yaman and Catfish. I mean, come on, guys.
I mean, that's a people main event.
That's the elephant in the room the whole time. Let's be honest. That's the fight.
We're just waiting to talk about it until the very end, so people don't leave the podcast.
That's true. We shouldn't bury the lead. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got LJ waiting in the corner, just salivating about open finger gloves.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that is definitely the people's match. Could you see the views on that press conference between the two? It just shows that the regular folks are just excited about Yaman more than Suzuki and Kaneko, I think.
I mean, I'm more interested in Yaman than in Takeru versus Tenshin, to be clear. The party line is that Ashizawa kicked Yaman before the guy tackled him. So that's a down. That's a 10-8 round for K1 before the fight even begins. And let's see where it goes from there.
Yaman went through the table as well. That was like some New Japan shit, bro. That shit was hardcore. I loved it.
There's historical precedent, though. Like getting taken down during a press conference before the fight leads to tremendous amounts of views.
Are you talking about like Peter Graham and Badahari?
No. I was talking.
I think he means
Kaito
Takeru versus Ozawa, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that little foot sweep. Oh my god, that was amazing. But no, yeah, Peter Graham like shot on Badahari back in the day, like fully double.
Yeah, that was intense. And he got
heavyweight.
the I'm sure
then
Pathfinder enjoyed that one, but he actually got the Domarochi on him.
Yeah, I love Peter Graham. He's good friends with Nicholas Pettis and grew up with all those guys. So, and then on one of their fights to kill him with a rolling thunder, just about ended his career. That was fucking chef's kiss.
Goodness, K1 was so good back in the day.
Yeah. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy as well.
Maybe that's why Bada is the way he is now. Like he got stunted on so hard, he just like a bit of his brain broke.
Listen, we don't need Badahari and all this shit and rolling thunders. We have welterweights who are really fat. Okay, can't we just all be happy with the fat welterweights we got now? And Cena, right? I mean, that's the best division you're ever gonna get.
Pathfinder, I don't even know who's in welterweight anymore. Doombe retired. Now we just
They're
have
all in
these other
heavyweight now. They're all
Gregorians.
cruisers. That's why you don't know any. They're all cruiserweights now.
Are you talking about the other support welterweight, not the kickboxing welterweights? Goodness.
So we will steadily ramp up in fatness, but first we have the opposite. There's one guy here who feels like he does not belong. So Kazane won that 53 kg tournament in Rise, which was just full of...
No, he didn't.
Okay, he won with an asterisk. The tournament was just full of professional champions, and then at more or less the same
trash man,
time,
you didn't win.
at more or less the same time, K1 held a tournament which they realized was so bad, and I didn't realize this at the time because I didn't actually watch it. It was full of amateur champions, which is fine, but the winner did not get made the champion. He was made a tournament champion, and Toma Kuroda. He did pretty well for himself, but I don't think he would have beat anyone in the Rise tournament.
It's a really, I guess it's a stylistically interesting match since Kuroda has a one-punch power and Kazane has a volume. I just really find it difficult to imagine a world where Kuroda lands on Kazane.
Yeah.
I don't think Kazane really hurts Kuroda either, but I can imagine him stealing all 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Kuroda's kind of an interesting player at 53 in the sense that he's a southpaw that's all about like the long left hand, which is kind of like a rare archetype that you see at lower weight classes. It's mostly a lot of like volume guys or like guys with more Thai styles. But I mean, Kazane just fought the southpaw like in kickboxing, so he's just trained for that for like probably like 8 weeks for that fight. So I think he's going to be pretty prepared for what Kuroda's going to bring to the table here. I would have to just give the fight to Kazane. He's a very improved guy. Like he used to just be like a pure like banger when he was coming up, and then when he got absolutely shelled by Kazuki Osaki, like really just humiliated and just dropped and thrown all over the place. He started to just like work a lot more like fundamentals. Like he just throws a lot more like clean and crisp volume as opposed to just slugging, and it did pay off in that tournament win. Whatever we think about it, I mean. The Shiro decision's one decision. The Jin Mandakoro decision is a whole other beast, in my opinion. That one I had a real problem with that one personally. But he went in there against Tenshin, didn't embarrass himself at all. Like he really kind of gave a good equivalent of himself, even if he lost. So he's got this kind of this fight, I guess, off the back of that. I think in like the positive showing that he gave, he's been given a spot on this card against a guy who, like we said. Kuroda won the tournament in K1 at 53. He didn't even get a belt for it. It's just kind of strange. It's weird that they're doing all this, and then the Crush title at the weight he never even got to compete for either. So it's almost like he's by default the best guy, but he's not someone that they're really trying to like position as someone in the elite as far as like the way he's being perceived goes. So this is a good fight. It's not one that I'm like really invested in personally, but I would definitely go Kazane on points for this.
Yeah, I'd rather not try to demean Kuroda in any way, but it does sort of feel like if K1 was really trying to win this one, they would have gotten Gunji or Nimi or someone like that. It sort of feels like a gimme.
Well, I mean, they've got nobody at the weight. I think even guys like below this flyweight is that what 51 or 51.5.
Do you know why, Dogman? It's because 53 kgs is not a thing, and we should not normalize it as such.
Well, look, officially, I believe everybody over 63 kg is a heavyweight. So we do need to, have some give and take. So we need to create these weight classes in which they just have nobody. Or if they do have somebody, it's like a guy whose thing is that he dances and can never make the weight.
You realize Rise is doing a 51.5 kg Grand Prix as we speak. And where does that end?
Well, it ends with, have you seen that kid, Dinah?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where it ends. Like someone coming out of Toma's gym with the same, like, immaculate full body tan, just absolutely killing people.
We'll see.
All I
I
have
mean,
to say about this fight is
go ahead.
I have a hard time imagining someone who just gave Tension like a really good run for his money, losing to Kuroda. Like it's that simple to me. And when you compare their latest outings, it's just not even close.
Yeah, okay. And then we move to the fattest fight on the card, or at least the fattest so far. Beinoa versus Hiromi Wajima. Wajima always gets like, I don't even know this guy's name, man, but there's he's the Asahisa super fan who like does these weird like prayer runs when they're making weight. He will run like 63 kilometers or something in a week to ensure that they make the weight. Anyway, he is always on Wajima's ass about not being ripped at 70 kg. And this is at 71. And Beinoa's best weight is probably 67.5. And, we've talked on this a bit about how he's splitting his attention between a million different things. But Wajima is a dangerous, dangerous man. And he's dangerous in a way that is unusual at this weight in Japan. He's not just like a guy like Kimura was, where it's just like you have to worry about getting punched in the first 2 minutes very, very hard. Like everything he does hits hard. Leg kicks, head kicks, knees, punches. He's very good everywhere. I think he would struggle tremendously, like if he moved to 1 or something. But I think everybody in Japan at his weight has to be incredibly, incredibly worried in the ring with him.
He actually has like a 90% KO rate, right?
Yeah, and like not just that, like he puts people down with every kind of strike. He's not just like a one-dimensional threat. He's very, very unusual for this scene.
May I ask something to Pathfinder that might be a tad off color?
Sure.
Do you still believe in Beinoa at this point?
No. I mean, I've talked about it on the last like 2 or 3 podcasts. Even his own coach has called him out multiple times for being just attention divided to the point of insanity. His heart's not in kickboxing at all. He seems more focused on the comedy stuff and teaching than anything else. Everything else seems like keeping the lights on at this point. Especially if you like follow his day-to-day life and stuff like that. He spends so little time in the gym, it's actually kind of absurd at this point.
Yeah.
So do you think the 71 kg limit is for Beinoa and not Wajima?
Well, Beinoa spent 99% of his career fighting at 70 kg even in karate. So it's like pretty natural for him. He can easily go higher or lower. That's not a problem either way. Because he did open weight too, right? In all Japan, so.
Well, I always felt like he was better when he was just a little lighter.
I imagine if he's bulking up, it's for right? So they do
almost
have...
certain.
Yeah.
Okay, mark the timers, 1 hour, 12 minutes.
We had a good run. But yeah, no, it's true. Like Beinoa's fights in Rising were like at like 71 and 73 kg. So I guess it's more just in line with like where he's been recently. Like as far as the fight's concerned, like yeah, Wajima's just like a terrifying like offensive force at this weight. Like very few guys, like you said, can kick and punch in sequence and in unison, like with this degree of effectiveness. Like he works the southpaw left hand and the southpaw middle kick like together. Like he's like a very slow and unathletic guy. But he's almost kind of similar to how Krokop used to. He's got a really great tool set, and his one real weakness to me is that he's kind of a slow starter. He comes out cold a bit. He got dropped in like the first 10 seconds by the Himalayan cheetah. He got kind of like killed quick by Kimura, although that was in the final of a one-night tournament, so we can forgive that. But he warms up as fights go on, and his style is very much attritional. Like he breaks you down. He's not a dumb brute force brawler. Like he's got a lot of intelligence behind how he puts his shots together. So his one weakness is that he's a slow starter, and lo and behold, so that is also Beinoa's one real weakness. He's got dropped in like tons of first rounds and come out cold and had to come out and win big comebacks. So for me, this is by a good distance. This is probably the most lopsided matchup on the card. I'd be very surprised if Beinoa saw the final bell, let alone won.
Yeah, I mean, Beinoa is coming off of a pretty quick knockout as well.
Right.
Has he even recovered from that at this point? Like, I don't even know why he's on the card, to be honest. That's too close to a KO for me. Like, if he was my guy,
I think he's on the card because nobody remembers who the 70 kg Rise champion even is.
I think with a couple of these matchups, they had clearly planned them ahead of time.
Don't diss Yamazaki like that. Come on.
But LJ, any thoughts on Benoit? I mean, I know you interviewed the guy.
Yeah, I feel like he's got good potential in the dreaded sport. I'll just say it that way so you don't have to edit it. So because his heart is basically over there, I feel like we're gonna basically get a repeat of his recent loss. And just kind of like off topic, but what Karaev said about K1 organizing these matches clearly before. It's I just find it hilarious that every single time they try to set up this spectacular fight, something basically fucks up and it destroys the narrative.
Are you talking about a spectacular fight like Ishii versus Kyotara?
No, not that one, but just yeah, it's uncanny.
Okay, and then there's something that came out of left field for me and apparently for Leona as well. Kan Nakamura versus Leona Pettis at 62 kg. Kan Nakamura is a fun, very, very wild guy. Southpaw. I kind of did not expect to see him on this card, and I definitely did not expect to see him in this fight. I think everybody thought they were going to put Leona and Taiju together. Like it was thematically appropriate, the big lean weirdos, but no. But this is kind of interesting because Leona, he's fought a few southpaws before. He's done pretty well, but he also has a lot of bad habits sometimes. So you see him in fights where he does not respect a guy. He will just like his feet just positioned all over the place. Like he doesn't even look like the same fighter between like when he fights a guy like Taiyo Asahisa and when he fights a guy like Naoki Yamamoto. And he said basically that Nakamura sucks. They've trained together through Benoit, so I don't know if that's just like pro wrestling bluster or if he really thinks the guy is beneath him, but Nakamura hits hard enough, and Leona's chin is very good, but he got essentially knocked out against Takeru, and it's not going to stay great forever. Leona is the better fighter by a pretty wide margin, but I could see him like losing, so it's interesting. Like I expect him to win, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets clocked unexpectedly, and so strange, interesting matchup.
Yeah, I really like this one. I think Kan Nakamura, very, very athletic, very, very explosive, very fast. Not the most like technically like graceful fighter in the world, but like you said, yeah, a guy who's extremely dangerous, especially early on. He basically like knocked out Tiger like twice in the first round. Well, the second time after the bell. So then he killed Tomohiro Kitai really quick in his last one as well. So yeah, like you said, like Leona's actually looked great against southpaws in the fights that I've seen. At least the Murakoshi one is the one that really stands out to me. Like he was commanding like the lead hand battle and just crashing in with like lead right hands across the space in between them there. It was really, really like he has that like he knows how to deal with an opposing stance matchup. Like he has a very clear idea in his head, and I do think if this fight is like a technical tit for tat, then it's his all day. But Leona's also like a brawler at heart, and like he will, instinctually he will do something like he did against Takeru and like jump into the pocket and throw 3 punches, all on the same line, not take his head off the line or anything and get clocked, because that's really who he is as a fighter. Even though as like a technician, he's got a lot of tools that means he doesn't need to do that, but he just will. So Kan Nakamura in his fight against Yaman, he was like out on his feet for like the last 2 rounds for that. I don't know how he hung on. He really kind of took a shellacking after starting well in the first 20 seconds maybe, but he got rocked and never really recovered. It's going to be, I think this is one that's going to be kind of like a blood and guts brawl, which I'm all for in any scenario, especially with 2 guys as tough as these 2 are. I'll definitely go with Leona just because like his track record is very, very solid, and he's shown that he can pull through in tough fights, whereas Kan Nakamura, he's either like killed guys quick or like he's really, really struggled. So yeah, I'll pick Leona, but this is a don't blink matchup for sure.
Yeah, I think there's like one thing that I wanted to add, which you've like hit the nail on the head, is if Leona gets cracked, he wants to fight to the death, and you saw that in his old fighting crush with Atsuki, and getting up after getting like completely blown out by Takeru, whereas Kan Nakamura he kind of withdraws a bit. I think, yeah, if they, if there's an early knockdown and then one of the guys gets up, it has very high potential to go completely insane and off the rails.
I'd agree with you that probably the Otsuki fight is the success case that you could draw a metaphor from. Otsuki was a southpaw with a lot of power. It also does feel, to be honest, like Leona himself said he was expecting the fight to be versus Taiju. So presumably they were expecting to put Naoki on the card. So they had someone else at 62 to 65 kgs. But they shifted matchups at last minute. And I'd imagine that unless Leona really, really underestimates Kan Nakamura, he should take this bout on almost every conceivable metric. He probably has a better jaw. He has more range. He probably has more power. I don't really see how he loses.
Yeah, that more or less mirrors how I feel about it. Like when you go through, I know Nakamura has looked really good recently, and he's had some kind of blowout performances that have made him look really good. But when you go through his record, like you could argue like Taiga is his best win. Like he's never faced anybody anywhere close to the caliber of Leona. I think Leona just hits too hard. He's fought too many guys like him. And just putting that out there, I don't think I'll have time to try to find it, but you said, Dogman, that they sparred together. That footage is out there. I've seen it before, and it was not pretty. Leona beat the absolute piss out of him, kind of the same way you've seen the videos of him versus brother. So I think it's Leona's fight to lose. When you're talking about a guy who hits this hard, obviously there's always the chance of just the one punch, like clean out. But other than that, other than a puncher's chance, I think Leona's just way too high level for a guy who's not fought on this caliber before. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like, there's a lot of people who fight like they have emotional problems because they have emotional problems. And Leona is the only guy I've ever seen who fights like he has emotional problems, but does not. He seems to be like a completely normal guy, but you get him in there and he just like goes insane. And he said like after the Takeru fight that he knows now that he has to work on controlling his emotions. And it's like, okay, you can know that, but you can't do that. You will never change those stripes.
Yeah, he gets that from Makoto Nakamura. I mean, we've talked about this before on like the first episode. You actually talked about it in your piece about how he trained at Honbu. So he was under the tutelage specifically of the second and third world champ, who is known to be exactly like you say, and just an absolute lunatic, like just making plans. He used to draw like the face of foreigners on the bag. And what he would do is he would get someone to hit the gong. And as they were hitting the gong, like to go, he would throw a high kick to make it match. The moment the gong's decibel can be heard, the kick is already in their face. So very technically, it's legal. So not only even in the emotional problems with Leona's fouling, soccer kicking guys in the face while they're down, he gets that from Nakamura Sensei as well. You could easily argue that he's way more influenced by Nakamura than he is by Nicholas Pettis, and that goes, if you know Nakamura's history, like it all makes sense what you're talking about. So yeah, like 100%, you're right on the money on that.
Interesting.
I'd rather not this, be a deep dive on Leona's psyche, but he is also in a pretty interesting place career-wise, right? Because I'd say he suffers from what I'd call Vegeta syndrome, where he's had a pretty long-standing rivalry against someone he's built up to for so long, and now that's off. And what do you do from there? Typically, people like Sato Yoshihiro after Masato or Ozawa Kaito after Takeru, they've really, really gone on the offensive for a lot of these fights, trying to make a statement in some other division, which is somewhat what Leona is doing now. And that's not always worked out for them. So I think it's conceivable that Kan Nakamura takes this by some, I wouldn't say fluke, but in the lining of the stars. That said, if Leona plays his cards right, it's really hard to imagine him losing.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have been looking at like Leona's social media or not, but I think yesterday he just posted that he just bought a Range Rover. So I don't know if that makes him a douchebag now, but I think
I saw that.
Did he actually buy it, or was it like, because he gets sponsored by some car guy?
It was his birthday, wasn't it?
yeah, he just turned 30.
Guys, when you turn 30, you want to buy cars, all right? That's just a thing that happens. So,
Well, he only got his driving license in like the last year and a half.
it's honestly not that rare of a syndrome in Japan. I think a lot of guys either get their licenses when they're in college, or they get them when they're at their quarter life crisis.
Okay, well, how often do they go from like some like crappy efficiency car to a Range Rover in the first year?
I cannot answer that. I can only hope that he has some sort of sponsorship deal that he is paying out.
But the talk about like fated rivalry and moving division, he posted like the day after the fight was announced, like showing himself on the scale, and he was like, "I can make weight tomorrow," and this is like in a weird tweener weight division kind of thing. Like officially, he said that he was moving up to 62.5, but he's been saying that he will fight at both weight classes, and he was still only like 64. Like he could still fight at 60. So I don't know what his thing is. I do want to see him against Hirotaka Asahisa, who's conspicuously missing from this card, I would say.
Well, that's by choice, right? Remember, he said he wasn't going to do that. He was going to wait out for Takaru, right?
Yeah.
That like his dad and him have both made that very clear. He's not necessarily missing. He's let them know like there's no shot I'm going to be on it. I'm not doing anything until I get Takaru.
Yeah, there's also no way that's going to happen.
I mean, I don't want to quote things that happened in ancient history, but even back in 2008, New Year's Eve, Sato Yoshihiro was calling out Masato for his retirement fight because he thought he got a knockdown and that entitled him to another fight. I think if you're somewhere where you're so close to superstardom in terms of competitive level, but not necessarily so in publicity, it probably pushes pressure on you to try to make some noise.
Oh, I just want to say too that on the whole, his rivals riding off into the sunset, and that might affect him because of historical precedent. All I can say about that is that rivalry is not done, and it's not set in stone that it's not happening. Okay, there's other things going on with that. May not be in kickboxing, but don't be shocked if that still happens down the line, because let me tell you, Leona has some things to say about that guy, and just like Pettis with Musashi, that will never be over.
Coming soon to Sasuke. So next we have this one I did not expect at all. Taiju versus Gangnapa. I can't picture in my head how like the two guys in the ring will mesh. I just think that Taiju's not going to win. I think he's looked a bit lackadaisical recently. And, Gangnapa's just going to kick hard, punch hard. And for a guy who seems like pretty content just sitting back, absorbing blows and like throwing one back, it bodes pretty poorly for the way Taiju's looked recently.
Yeah, I agree. I think Taiju's been somewhat exposed a little bit in his recent run as a guy who is just a bit too fragile to really be on this level. He just gets hurt like with clean shots, man. Like Koji got dropped early in their fight, but ended up like arguably winning the last two rounds just by being like dogged and just like thrown to the body a lot. Naoki Tanaka basically did nothing in the first two rounds in their rematch, and then in the last round just decided to go forward and throw body kicks, and Taiju just hated it. He couldn't do anything. He shut down and like just completely gave up the last round and lost the fight as a result. Gonapa, like he's been hurt before. You could say he's maybe chinny when it comes to like taking punches because he's been stunned, he's been knocked out, a couple times, but I don't know. I don't think Taiju has the kind of grit or like the front foot style to go forward and like put punches on Gonapa because that's what he's going to have to do to win. He's not going to win like a slow pace like kicking match with Gonapa. That's just not on the cards here. So I think stylistically and physically, this is going to be a Gonapa decision win for sure.
I think I might take a contrary opinion to that. Sorry, Luke, but I think this is a case where both guys actually have case studies where they've won similar matchups, right? And for Ganapar, he absolutely shut down a pretty young Rukia and just nailed him with a straight punch that slept him forever. But the one thing Taiju has been able to do is that he sort of has a sweet spot in his range where he has a bunch of boxing combos where he can land on an opponent, especially on early rounds. And he was able to get Sexen with it. So if he was able to do that, maybe he might be able to do that on Ganapar. That said, I would agree with Luke that the odds favor Ganapar a lot more. He's been dropped in early rounds versus guys like Wei Rui, but he's still been able to pull it back around and really attrition his opponent. So my money would be on Ganapar, but I think it's a bit closer than what Luke said.
I think it's a good point to raise, and to be honest with you, some of Gonapar's recent fights, like that Yuma Psycho fight, you could easily say that he got lucky in getting that decision. That was a very, very close fight. Although Psycho's like, a very, very mobile like boxer on the back foot, whereas Taiju's kind of like very flat-footed and basically will like walk towards somebody, wait for them to throw something, lean back, and then, like you say, let go with like 3 or 4 punches. So it's stylistically a bit different, but yeah, you know what? I mean, maybe Taiju's boxing is going to be enough if he manages to lure Ganapar in like he did to Sexan in, I think it was the first or second round when he dropped him and hurt him really, really bad in their fight. Yeah, it could be interesting. No, I think that's a good point, well made.
Sorry, I'm in stunned silence because it is usually Luke that does this to me. I have an opinion on something, and then he sort of surgically dissects it with evidence that is incontrovertible that I also agree with. So she was on the other foot.
No, this is great. This is what I enjoy. I like it.
Dude, I mean, I'm sure all of us has been watching combat sports for 10 plus years, but all of this is just witch doctrine, right? So you can come up with plausible narratives for why certain things can happen, but when the actual action goes down, no one knows what's happened, and in retrospect, things look so obvious, but it did before it actually happened.
Yeah, it's true, and I think especially for a card like this with so many like very evenly matched fights, there are only a couple of instances on this whole show where like there's a wide favorite, like a seriously wide favorite. I think all these fights are arguable either way. Absolutely.
So, question again, because I mean, I haven't looked at the official heights, but I mean, Ganapar is a pretty like short and stocky guy, and Taiju is very, very tall and lean. If they do have clinch strikes in the rules for this, do you think Ganapar can even get one off?
I mean, I think I don't know. Can Taiju even like? Does he have any clinch ability at all? I've never seen it.
I don't think he even has. All right, I shouldn't say this, but I don't even remember him throwing solid knee strikes or anything from his lower body. He strikes me as much more of a mid-range boxer. He's not someone I remember getting the better of in clinch or even using tankouts to keep people at a middle distance. And I think that's sort of been the gap for him in his entire career. The fact that he can nail people at mid-range with boxing combos, but he can't get people off of him with knees or keeps.
Yeah, you might have to explain to people the clinchless knee, the tenkao.
The tenkao is a knee that you do without actually grasping onto folks with your hand. So it's the clinchless knee that's so popular with K1 rules fighters, so that people get off of you in close distance and you can keep boxing with them.
Sorry, I think Luke was going to say something.
No, yeah, I was going to say that obviously the fight that Taiju had with Koji last year there was a lot of clinching in the like the middle to late rounds of that fight as Koji was coming forward, and Koji was using like his 3 main weapons, his right hand, his left hand, and his forehead to great effect. But Taiju was just kind of like, he was kind of holding on. He wasn't really able to do much other than just try and stall out. So yeah, it's going to be weird. He is officially 6 foot tall, and Ganapar is officially 5'6". So that is going to be
Damn.
certainly a funny image, if nothing else.
14 centimeters for people in civilized countries.
How tall is Rukia?
He's 5'11", I think.
180?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we already have that image if he gets like clocked and just falls through the floor. So then there is the battle of the old and the young versions of the same guy, Kento Haraguchi versus Hideaki Yamazaki. Yamazaki, king of the injuries, had his face broken, his knees are all fucked up, coming off of a knockout. You know, he can always come out a million miles an hour, first 10 seconds, clock a guy. Haraguchi has been, you know, sort of doing the same thing, just throwing absolutely wild, zero fundamentals. And it's, you know, served him pretty well. But I suspect Haraguchi wins simply because he's not coming off of having a horrific concussion. He's younger, more mobile, not like falling apart physically. But, you know, that's the enjoyable thing about Yamazaki's style is it could happen. So I don't know, it'll be fun until it's over, and then it'll probably feel slightly depressing. But you know, thematic matchmaking, pretty good.
Yeah, I was just thinking the other day about this fight and how it is like old versus young, but they almost kind of are the same fighter in lots of ways, in the sense that they're both like karate guys with very, very like impressive, dexterous kicking games who just love to just throw bombs and looping punches. So I will say that I think Yamazaki's like he's obviously got much more experience under K1 rules. So like he's got a very, very kind of like refined like punch selection, whereas Kento's just like flopping around like one of those like big inflatable tube socks in front of a gas station in all of these fights. I mean, he got dropped. So he's got dropped, I think, in the Lompech fight that he just won. He got dropped early in that. He got dropped by Tapuan, hardest workout as well, early on. Just throwing silly strikes and putting himself in positions that he shouldn't be for a guy with his like skill level. So I could theoretically see him kind of like just falling into a punch from Yamazaki and getting absolutely iced. But I mean, Yamazaki got knocked out really recently by Tetsuya Yamato, and that was a bad knockout, man. Like Tetsuya Yamato, yeah, he's got a great left hook. We all know that, but that was not his best left hook ever. But it certainly landed like it. And then yeah, Yamazaki was like out cold, bad. Like for a guy of, you know, 35 years old with like you said, the litany of injuries that guy had. Like he was out for a year with like he had like retina surgery or some shit. Like he's been through the ringer, and he's had a lot of tough fights. So you'd have to edge on the side of a guy who's probably going to get back up if he gets knocked down. And I think in that fight, that'll definitely be Kento in this case.
I'd be interested to hear what Pathfinder says on this. Obviously, the two guys are Shotokan, not Kyokushin, but...
Oh, God. I feel like the last two, I've gone borderline unhinged rants about both of these guys. So I think I'll just summarize, because people who listen consistently are probably tired of hearing about it. But Crest Gym is satanic. They absolutely ruined Yamazaki. It is their fault. They proudly have posted videos in the past of him getting laid out, like recently after winning the belt, by heavyweights for absolutely no gain. He looks worse and worse every time we see him, durability-wise. Even the fights where he won and he looked good, like Fukashi, he literally said, Dogman will remember this, that he had to win in like 10 seconds because his leg wasn't going to hold up. Just ridiculous situation to be put in for a guy of his skill level. And yeah, but the problem is, like we've said, and I've said a million times, Kento has not looked the same since the Taiju fight. He landed that one big spinning heel kick, and ever since he got that, he's been chasing it. He doesn't combo anymore. He used to be a flurry fighter. Now he just throws wild spinning kicks and looping punches, which he never did before. If you go back and look at his early career, there's no way, really, I think, to predict how this is going to go, because both guys have gotten dropped pretty bad, just swinging wild. I think it's literally just going to be two guys swinging like drunks in the middle of the ring, and the first guy to get clipped goes down. And it's sad, because I feel like maybe a year ago, half a year ago, we would be talking about this fight much differently, because both of them were, I don't know, just looking different. They had different auras about them, but both have sort of had that shattered recently, and I think it's a must win for both of them because of that. So for me, it's less exciting than it would have been a year ago.
And I think it's weird, right, that they would put this sequel to Looper not on direct-to-video, but on a pay-per-view service. It's, I don't know, weird. LJ, anything to say about Human Beyblade?
Sort of agree with what everyone said already, but I guess if there's one fight on this card that won't go to a decision, I think it will be this one.
I think that is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, it's just Pathfinder like mentioned Crest Gym there, and it is something that I missed, and I do want to bring up that video of that they put out of Yamazaki getting laid out by, I think it was Itaka, the cruiserweight, is like, it's some of the most shocking and appalling like training gym footage I've ever seen put in the public domain. Like, it's absolutely unthinkable. Like, the first time I saw it, I didn't even know if it was real or not. Like, it was just utterly insane. One, that they were doing that, and two, that they were filming it and sharing it as though it wasn't like criminally negligent on the behalf of the people that like are the reason that gym can exist and be a business. Yeah. So like you said, it's not too surprising that when he loses in like just horrific car crashes. Yeah,
I think it's sort of, karate mentality, right? It's not a natural state that there are weight classes and people that you practice with in your size weight. I've been knocked out by folks who have 20 centimeters on me before. And, when you're in a smaller country and working in a smaller gym, it's just something that happens. And if you're a YouTuber trying to grow your audience, then you might be willing to publicize it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I wanted to mention that we haven't sort of touched on. Like, I ranted about this a bit last episode as well. But the person who actually posted the footage was Yamazaki, which is again, just another layer on a completely absurd situation that does nobody any good except his subscriber number, I guess. But just awful all around.
He had just won the belt too. He had finally after losing it to Anpo, climbed his way back to where he needed to be, and then he's throwing nothing spinning back kick with not much power to not hurt his partner. And Aitaka, the dumb fat fuck, just lays him out, and that's apparently really cool and something to upload, and it just makes no sense to me. I think that gym and their culture and the things I've heard from some guys that train there, it's a absolute fucking nightmare, and it's a toxic culture that, well, that exists in a lot of them. Like, Crest takes it to a whole other level where it's almost like celebrated when you lay out one of your training partners. I just think that gym is fucking awful.
I don't want to get into a tangent, but it's sort of odd that Crest really has no one in there anymore, right? So Takara is off training.
I wonder why.
His own gym. Yamazaki, I guess, is still there. But besides that, the only folks there are folks that they've attracted through various reality TV shows. And, people don't stick there for very long.
Yeah, right? Like, Takadu is staring down the barrel of getting a few $1 million finally, and suddenly he's nowhere to be found. He's exclusively hitting pads in a gym that he made himself underneath some stairs somewhere.
Yeah, so Noiri is officially associated there, but I never see him in like any kind of like shared social media. So I assume he's training mostly in his own place as well. And he's on his career best form. So yeah, adds up.
Well, he's also not really much of a social media guy. Like, for the longest time, he didn't have Twitter. He doesn't, like, follow anyone. His thing is just...
That's a power move, by the way.
Yeah, by the way. I mean, he just, like, absolutely kills people. And then he'll like, post, like, a month later, like, oh, thank you for supporting me.
Oh, he's such a boomer. I love it.
He rules, man.
Supposedly, Noiri's still at Crest, but he has a bit of a checkered history, right? Since he moved from Oishi Gym to Kohiri Maki Gym, and then he moved back to Crest. I think he mostly just finds his own sparring partners for whatever matches that he's working towards. I've heard great things about the specific trainers at Crest, specifically Watanabe, but I don't think it's actually a hub where people gather anymore, at least not since 2019 or something.
So, real quick, is Kohi still like persona non grata?
Kohi is a YouTuber now, and he's doing his own things, like working with Asakuras and what have you. I don't know. I think him and K1 group has reconciled, but he does not necessarily have a gym that people come to.
Okay, so everyone's a YouTuber.
far as I know, Noiri still goes to Crest, but he mostly trains with Yuki Yoza now because Yuki Yoza is always posting stuff with him. That seems to be the click. And I think they do a lot of stuff outside of it.
I was gonna say, like, I really want to see those two sparring.
Yeah, I think it's smart that they splintered off there.
Okay, so unless there's anything else, it is the LJ Power Hour. So we have the only mixed rules bout on the fight, unless Gomi truly has finessed his way onto the card by bullying Sakakibara. So Yaman, surprisingly, despite his like copious experience allegedly street fighting and using these small gloves, lost the press conference round.
Didn't he go to hospital after that takedown?
Apparently, yeah.
Which is nuts, but I saw people joking that that security guard should be on I don't know, some Rise and Trigger or Rise and Landmark trash a matchup. But I reckon Yaman should really get this one quite easily unless he fucks up massively, because you know this is not in Ashizawa's Catfish's usual weight class. He's got experience with the open finger gloves, obviously, so yeah, this one should be for Yaman to win.
Yeah, so Yaman is like he's too good to be doing this stupid stuff. I've said this before, but you know, Ashizawa is the only person in recorded history who went to purge Tokyo and got better. Like he's actually been on a, you know, since quote unquote retiring and trying to become a rapper. He still has this sort of completely smooth, featureless body, but he is hurting people. He is like doing better than he was before. He seems to be pretty dedicated to it. And Yaman, you know, aside from you know, getting taken down and going to hospital after the press conference, he also was pretty you know, in the immediate past in a fight with God, Ito. Is Ito a devil sport guy, or was he like the brother of a devil sport guy or something? Anyway, in that fight, he like got dropped. He got cut because of the stupid ass small gloves. You know, and then like he hurt his own hand. So he's just been, you know, requiring severe amounts of medical attention in the run up to this. So if there's any fight that's going to get canceled, it might be this one.
I think this fight is sort of a litmus test, you know, since both of these guys are the leading meme lords of their individual organizations. And it feels very wrong for me to root against Ashizawa just because he's somehow won all his fights up to this point, even though he had no reason not to. So, Catfish Ashizawa it is.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, like the characters, the personas that these guys have, like, and Ashizawa was actually making fun of Yaman for it. Like, he is, you know, unexpectedly, despite being billed as the king of street fighting or whatever, he's actually a college level architect.
You can't do that. You have to be someone that has absolutely no prospects in your life to fight someone like Ashizawa. So that's why Ashizawa's going to win.
Yeah, I think I will agree that like Ashizawa, you know, for better, you know, to give the guy some credit, he has been working on some stuff. Like he's looked better in like this recent run than he ever has previously. Like he's throwing the jab a lot more. He's doing things a lot smarter than he used to. But yeah, I'll echo what LJ said as far as the matchup's concerned. I mean, this is up at 62 kgs, I assume. This is under Yarman's like preferred rule set, you know, regrettably. I think he should absolutely kill Ashizawa here. I just think physically it's a pretty huge mismatch. Ashizawa, like, he looks good when, like, you know, he's putting punches together and he's hurting guys. But I think in a war like this, I'm going to favor the guy Yaman who carries the much bigger stick. Yeah, I think this is definitely ending inside the distance, which is why they've, you know, put 4-ounce gloves on it, and it's a guaranteed knockout. It's a guaranteed viral moment, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think all the chips favor Yarman here. But I will agree with what Dogman said. I think it's a shame that he's even doing this kind of shit, because he should be fighting Naoki for the Rise title. Like, as far as like he's competitively earned that right already with like the wins over, you know, Kan Nakamura and Tomohiro Kitai. Like, he should be, you know, fighting a legitimate fight over 5 rounds for a real title. But I mean, earnings wise and like, you know, stardom wise, this kind of stuff in 2022 is going to be much more gratifying financially, and as far as his celebrity is concerned. So that's why we're going to see him continue to do stuff, I think. But yeah, Yarman be a knockout for sure.
Come on, Luke. You can't convince me that you actually want to see him fight Naoki. Who do you want to see fight Naoki ever?
Well, no, here's the thing: is I'm like a rankings nerd. Like that's how I like make sense of all this stuff. Is like the idea that there is some degree of like concrete pecking order. I agree that Naoki's like he's not a very like inspiring presence or figure to be a guy with the belt, but I mean, I do like to see things that like are deserved paid off, and I do think Yaman, despite all the weird fights he's been doing with the Yamaguchi brother and Koji and all this kind of stuff, I do think he has, for better or worse, he has earned that spot. I don't think we'll see it though. I think he's probably earning way too much money and like attention from these kind of fights. To be honest with you, I think a fight with Naoki that he could definitely lose probably is like not enough reward for the risk that it is when he can do fights like this. And he's so popular now. He's going to be like he's going to be one of Rise's like next big stars after Tenshin goes. Really, like he's in the big 3 or the big 5 for them. I will say though, a funny little side note: if you go on Yarman's Topology page, the photograph is of his back while someone else is kicking him. You can't even see his face in it, which is great. But yeah, that's all I got to say on this one.
But yeah, like theoretically, they, the Taiju stuff going on earlier on the card, they needed a guy a hair above 60 kg they chose Kan Nakamura, but like theoretically, Yaman could have been parlaying his way into like a fight with a guy who is at the competitive terms near the top of the sport, but he's doing these sort of jokey sideshow things. But he's built like a pretty sizable following for himself. And, Ashizawa does very well off of everything outside of the ring. Do you see, or do you think Yaman becomes sort of Abema, small-time personality guy after this, or what?
I think if he wins, yeah, for sure. He's just, yeah, he's a very unique presence in the sport right now with the kind of fights that he's doing and the kind of energy that he brings. I think, Abema are going to be pushing him to the moon for sure. And like you said, Azar was like, the kind of views that guy gets on like everything that's on social media is like mental to me. Like he's like, there'll be like a video of like an Instagram live he did that's like 20 minutes long. And he's just, I assume he's just like talking shit to people or talking shit on other fighters. It has like 500,000 views. Like who is this guy? Like how is he? This kind of attention is wild. Like you don't see anybody else getting the kind of like social media traction he does. And the press conference brawl and everything was like the biggest thing to come out of the promotion of this event outside of the actual main fight itself. Like by far. I mean, I think it's important to like state this for people that are maybe like from overseas that don't really understand the kind of like difference in attention that some of these fights are getting. This fight here is getting more attention as far as hype and like anticipation and talk than all the other fights on this undercard.
But that's sort of the thing, isn't it? Because even if you can convert just 1 or 2% of that few 100,000 folks, and you can sell that as $20 pay-per-views like Ashizawa has, that's $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 per fight, which might not sound a lot for folks who are UFC fighters or what have you, but that's more than what any champion in a typical Japanese kickboxing ring makes. And there's sort of a transition of a monetization model from a world where Naoki's out there and trying to sell 100 tickets to 100 friends that he knows for $100 a piece to make $10,000 to someone just making 2 minutes of nonsense at a press conference and selling that as a pay-per-view versus folks who aren't even actual legitimate fighters. So, the world's moving. And if Yaman is smart, he's moving towards the world that Ashizawa is already in.
Yeah, so the economic transition that is taking place is largely due to you being one of 13 people on Earth that bought the Ashizawa pay-per-view where he was fighting like guys from YouTube and host clubs and stuff. So thank you very much.
Dogman, I know for a fact that more than 2,000 people bought that pay-per-view.
No way.
It's insane. And it was versus absolute amateurs.
Damn.
All I have to add about this fight is that with Catfish coming out, there's a high likelihood that Sarah is going to be in his corner.
Oh,
and we're
no.
probably going to get subjected to one of those walks with her singing, and I'm going to fucking live leaks myself in
my God.
Minecraft.
How can we show that to the many people who are going to be watching this event? Just Sarah singing is just appalling.
And then
think that might
Yaman's
be
going to
where-
win. She'll go home with him, as is tradition, of course.
You don't know, Yama might rap his own entrance, and I don't
Oh,
think he
far
can come
out.
back from that.
Like, he already has a rapper name for a fighter, so he's halfway there.
He just needs to steal Tenshin's big-ass chain with the Triceratops.
I should just add that in the K1 group, there's a man called No Man who was a
Yes.
previous Crush champion. And I don't understand why they did not make Yaman versus No Man.
Yeah, there was also like two girls, one called Nana and one called Yaya. They're just leaving money on the table here.
Grandma fights don't make as much money as you think, Dogman.
Well, actually, this brings up another point of conspicuous absence, which is what before this stuff was announced, I was thinking like, which of their female talents are they gonna put on here to highlight? And I think before this was announced, they announced K1 are doing their first all female show, and I think those are really important to develop talent. It's something that Rise has been doing for a long time now, because if you only have like 2-3 spots at max where the women can get professional experience, like of course the talent pool is going to be smaller. They're going to develop less fast. And then like as the timing all sort of coalesced, I thought, oh, it seems like they've put that together simply because it allows them to put all of their big male stars in the same space and still have a card on. It feels quite cynical and quite a shame.
Are you talking about Ring of Venus?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the Hinata Terayama retirement was like really badly, unfortunately timed for this, because I feel like she would have probably been like a certainty for this event, where she still competing, just because like she's a pretty like central promotional figure for Rise. Like she's fought like all of their girls basically. But yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that the women's kickboxing scene in Japan right now is just not active enough there to be the kind of like matchups that could be made cross promotionally that would like demand to be made. So like they've got I think so. Is Kana in that tournament on Ring of Venus, or is that all down at like 46 kg? I think it's below her weight.
Yeah, Kana's in a separate division. She's doing her own fight.
Right. So she's on the card but not in the tournament. Yeah. So then they've got that, and they've got like Miyu Sugawara, who I think is in the tournament. It's just a shame that they don't really have the numbers at the moment, I think, to get something on this card. I do think it does need it. I think it does kind of stand out. Like, oh, okay, well, you have all these female champions. Like Rise have got like 3 divisions with belts. K1 have got like 3 divisions with belts, and not one of them's on any of these on this card as like a showcase event. That's kind of strange. But like you said, like their fighters are like they're just all booked at the moment. Maybe that was orchestrated, or maybe that was just bad timing and not enough options. But I do think it's unfortunate. Maybe something gets announced, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything, because we'll probably be like hearing about it already if there was.
I think the hurdle for a fight to be on the match at this moment is, if anything happens, it would have been Reina versus Kana or what have you, despite their weights not exactly lining up. Otherwise, what they have now is probably the best case scenario, where they have events featuring female talents lining up immediately after the match. So at least that might get a bit of fallout. But otherwise, with all the talent drops that's happened recently, it's really hard to justify a top of women's versus top of women's fight for this card.
Yeah, I think Terayama's retirement is like an unfortunate echo of Kamimura as well. So I think sadly the appetite to put sort of promotional resources into this is going to be diminished once again.
Ironically, the last Rise event in Tokyo Dome featured no female fighters as well.
I've been saying
Really?
that the dome is trash. It's a trash building. It looks like shit. No offense. I don't like it at all. I think it's just all like romanticism, and yeah, I'm not Team Dome.
It's an intensely difficult building to blog in general. There's a pretty strict process of weeding out people who want to book it. Even if you have the money for it, it requires a pretty big staff just to get people into the gates. So it's more of a symbolic meaning than anything. I don't think a single good actual martial arts event has ever taken part in the Dome.
You're not an all roads lead to the Dome nostalgia guy, huh?
You realize that marketing slogan was happening in the early 2000s when K1 has already peaked, right?
Would you not say it's peaking now? Maybe they were just playing the long game.
In terms of purse, actually, because the winners of the old-timey K1 Grand Prix only made 400K. And I'm pretty sure the combined purse of the two main eventers is going to be at least 10 times that at this moment. So monetarily, it's peaking now. It's just talent-wise.
Right, that's the thing. But just like the importance of this event, I do think is like definitely in what like karaev fan referenced earlier in terms of like the fallout of it. I think that's really why this is so significant. It's the impact that this can have as it echoes through like the coming years and the kind of way that it can draw people's attention, both as fans and as competitors to the sport of kickboxing. So that, you know, the purses that the two guys in the main event are going to receive are going to be like, you know, vastly larger than anybody else in the sport is going to get on this event and on any other event for years to come. But it may have the, you know, secondary effect of drawing so many eyes and so much attention to the sport in one go, which is why they've set up this card like this. They haven't gone in the way that lots of mega fights have gone historically, where you've got a great main event and absolute trash supporting it because they've just blown all the budget paying the two big guys and they can't get anybody else on the show. They've really like consciously constructed this thing from the ground up to showcase the best elements of both organizations, and in so doing so, the sport itself to as many people as possible. I think it's worth, you know, highlighting that and commending that, just as like they've really made everything of this opportunity in the way that built this event to have as much of a long-lasting impact as possible on the whole sport, and I think that's great. But you know, it might be a while before we really start to see like the positive rising tide that this can bring. But I do think they've done everything within their power as far as making this fight happen, first of all, and the way that they've built the whole event to make sure that they all win in the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, this brings up a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One is that, you know, the last time we were recording together, we were talking about, you know, if they were going to make this, how do they logistically do it? And we said that, like, the worst possible way, but the path of least resistance was a BEMA pay-per-view. And, you know, it doesn't make sense if it's not on Fuji. And they've sort of done both, which is, you know, slightly creative and pretty cool. But, you know, I think both guys in the main event, you know, retire from kickboxing after this. But I do think, well, what do you guys think? Like, they've built this as the match 2022. And this is, you know, from my perspective at least, like pretty clearly being pushed forward by the broadcaster. And they have, you know, invested pretty significant amounts of money to the extent that they, you know, bought a stake in K1 and obviously like support K1 and Rise a lot. And, you know, it's no coincidence that they are always running like similar weight classes, similar areas. Like their shows are usually on the same weekend. They're like bankrolled by the same people. Do you think we see this as a yearly, like recurring big show on pay-per-view, like K1 versus Rise kind of thing?
I don't think it happens annually. Nakamura has spoken on this, which is that Nakamura and Yabuki has said that this is something that happens when there's demand, as opposed to being something that's a ritual that happens every time. The best case scenario probably is that Kaneko wins his bout and Shiro wins his bout, so they have a next generation of stars that they can pass this on to. But realistically, the whole pay-per-view model in Japan is probably going to start exploding. It's just so much money. Sorry, give me a sec. You guys start talking.
karaev said too much, man. They found him.
1 second, though. We moved off of the Ring of Venus, the Schick commercial, a little too quick. I wanted to say something about the Schick Razor commercial. Is that I've proven my conspiracy theory from the last show correct. I did manage to find in the crowd that they did fuck up. Some intern did fuck up and put Beauty and Crash on the original t-shirts when they debuted the nickname for Miyu Sugawara. That those shirts are out there. Somebody did fuck up, and I know it's a fuck up because since she fought more recently, it now says Beauty and Crush. So somebody had to reprint all the shirts, but people who went to that Crush event did get Crash shirts. So I did prove that did happen, and if anybody can find one of the Crash shirts, I will pay a lot of money for it because that's just so fucking funny. Whoever screwed up probably doesn't work there anymore.
My terrible nickname given to me by Nakamura is also Bort. So I guess Karaev's being taken away by the authorities.
Ooh, sorry about that.
Are you okay?
He's in the back of a van.
No, it's just it's 9 p.m. on a Sunday, and certain folks see fit to visit me.
Does that mean it's time for closing remarks?
No, I can go over, but if you guys feel like the topic is wrapped up, then we can wrap up.
I mean, we hit all the fights. It's been going for over 2 hours now, so...
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that was honestly my concern going in. I was almost going to think like, okay, are we going to do just the main event, or are we going to do just the undercard? Because if we do both, like we might be here all day. But I think we got through it really like economically, which is good. And then obviously your edit job, Mr. Rick Rubin over there, chopping it up for us. So hopefully you can bring this down, probably like to maybe, I don't know, if you cut out like most of what I said and then some of what other people said, I think we might be down to like an hour or so. So that'd be good.
Yeah, I think it'll be out in time for the match.
Oh, that would be
Awesome.
wonderful.
I hope it is. I mean, if it comes out after, it's kind of fucking useless, isn't it?
You don't know. They might announce Nori versus Kaito, and you might be able to squeeze something in post.
Oh my god.
Well, I mean, they said there was going to be an undercard of like 10 to... Did they say 10 to 15, or was it 8 to 10 fights? Like, I'm not sure if this is final or not.
10 to 15. And I think they mentioned they wanted to get folks from other orgs, so the implication was that they were getting Nori versus Kaito and Rukia versus, I don't know, some guy.
God damn it.
There's number 2.
This is like an hour after the last one. So at least there's like a rhythm.
I'm stamped at 2:13. There you go, Dogman.
Okay, so anybody have any last words? Karaev fan, you go first.
As I mentioned, I'm really looking forward to going to this fight. It's probably going to be one of the first shows where people are allowed to cheer. 50,000 fans in the arena, which is something that hasn't happened in over 10 years since I was a wide-eyed youth. So this is going to be awesome. I'm pretty sure coming out of this event, there's going to be 12 different storylines we didn't even anticipate. So everything that's happening now is just setting everything up for things that are happening over the next decade. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Luke?
Yeah, I'll say that similar to what Karaev just said, this is kind of, I think it's really good that we came here to talk about this today because this event does feel like almost like a crossroads moment in the sport. And it could be, a transition into a great era of, just heightened collaboration and just more talent and more great fights going on, especially as, the world opens back up. I'm overjoyed and overwhelmed with relief that this is actually finally happening, and we're going to finally get some resolution to the years and years and years of talk and anticipation and all that stuff. And it's really kind of life affirming to know that like all that collective will and collective desire to see this happen actually did result in something concrete at the end of it. That's cool. That's like proof that like this wasn't a big like waste of all our times. Like we have actually managed collectively to create the scenario where we are going to see one of our biggest dreams realized. Thank God. Yeah. Roll on June the 19th.
Yeah, I mean, I'll sort of add on to that, which is I feel like it is over-delivered. Like, there was always, like, huge potential there with, this kind of collaboration and cross-promotion stuff, but the matchups are not the kind of, like, weird, tenuous, out-of-left-field kind of thing. It is just really well-considered from all aspects, and it feels like, yeah, this could be a turning point for kickboxing, where it might like have a future beyond like 12 people in Karakuen Hall, all of whom know intimately everybody that's in the ring, where there's just no like outside money coming in. It is, yeah, I mean, not so long ago, these people were at each other's throats, like threatening to sue for mentioning the other company in public. So it's just a huge sea change, and I'm really excited about it. And I fucking hope that I can actually buy the pay-per-view. So, everybody bully Yuji Kitano on Twitter, get him to unblock Karaev fan, and let's, hurl abuse at him until he lets us do what we want. LJ?
I was just thinking, what has Karaev done for Yuji to block him? But maybe that's a topic for another podcast. Yeah, just echo everyone's thoughts. It's a historic moment. And it'll be really disappointing if there's no international pay-per-view for it, because I think it's obviously a moment for kickboxing to shine domestically in Japan. But, there are plenty of Takeru and Tenshin fans all over the world. And I think it's a huge step for people to be noticing the talent in kickboxing just worldwide. And yeah, super excited for this.
So that leaves Pathfinder last.
I'll believe it when they're actually in the ring. I'm still not convinced this is actually happening.
You have to believe, Pathfinder. You have to believe no matter what the odds are. That's what we've done for the last 7 years.
COVID is a mystical bitch. That's all I can say. I'm still not convinced until they're in the ring.
I reckon they'd get them to do one of those rapid antigen tests like over and over until there's a negative, even. if there's just no way. There's so much money in this that they could not have the fight be postponed on the day, I reckon.
Just keep going until they get a false negative. Yeah,
Yeah,
they would do that.
basically.
Or just get the other guy to sign off saying he's okay to be infected if they like bleed on each other.
I'm sure most of the audience would sign off on that too, to be honest with you.
Well, we know you would. You're going.
I hope I'm going.
So, how far from the ring will you be? Will you need like a telescope?
It's gonna be pretty far. I only got S tier seats, which I think are up in the stands. So, it's $500 per seat, but it's still way further than I've ever been.
It's going to be so high profile. Yeah.
Are they 4 seats, the S tier, or is that like in the stands?
I think the S tier are up in the stands. RS is.
Yeah, that's probably better than floor seats. Like floor seats,
We'll see.
Like for me, like the first tier of the stands is like that's where you want to be, because at least as far as affordability goes, and you will actually be like over people's heads.
I don't think you're there in person until you actually hear the kicks land on the other guy. So hopefully that still happens. But
yeah, like in the dome,
yeah.
you'll probably have like the difference between the speed of light and the speed of sound, won't you?
It's a big arena, yeah. Cool. Is that about it?
Yeah, I think we're done here.
Actually, before we close off, can I make one plug? So one of my good mates, Shinsuke, is actually making a trailer for the match. He'll probably release it over the next month or so. His profile on Twitter is Shinsuke Visuals, and you can probably find it on his YouTube channel. And I've just sort of made a very small collaboration with him on that trailer. So I hope everyone checks that out.
That is so awesome. Shinsuke has been such a big part of this community for much longer than I have. I remember going up on K1 fans back in 2006 or something, and he was already a legend back then. And it's such an inspiring story that he's been, continuously contributing up to this point. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, he rules. And please, Naya Inoue's team, stop stiffing the guy.
He actually got paid to give an update, but it took a very long time.
Okay,
it was 5
cool.
months afterwards, so it's in no way should. Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
5 months, maybe not cool, but
Yeah.
Good that he got his money.
It sounds like in a way, like graphics people are about as good as his matchmakers. So.
I mean, he got paid faster than Tanikawa has paid any of the K1 guys, so that's better.
Did you see, like, there's a lot of, shall we say, uninformed people who watched Take's last match and are like, the only guy he can possibly fight is Inoue. It's like, really? Right now?
Who knows, man? This is
Take?
Yeah.
Pay-per-view economy, right? They might make it happen. Takei is probably better than like Inoue's last two opponents. Real talk.
We'll see. I mean, Takei has never fought more than 2 rounds, right? So he's probably going to be ranked 15 soon, and I imagine the path is that he fights for national bout within this year, and then OPBF or the world title next year. We'll see.
Crazy fast. That would be amazing.
I know.
I hope it happens. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but that would be fucking historic if he got it to that quick.
But you know that Tenshin thinks he's gonna get the world title within 3 fights. So.
Yeah, I hear that kind of shit, and like I don't even know what he's like taken to think that. That's literally like the guy's mental if he thinks that.
Yeah, I mean that's the match 2024. Those two.
Oh my god. Well, that's a pay-per-view I won't be buying.
Yeah, because Takei will win.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, sorry, I thought you meant Tenshin's like mythical, fictional world title fight in 2 fights. No,
No.
Right, if they end up boxing each other, that might be interesting. Maybe not, but yeah, that's more interesting to me at least than the other thing.
Did you see the amateur bout footage that finally got released? And like towards the end of the final round, Tenshin just sort of spins and does nothing, and then falls over and almost gets kicked in the face. Very high level stuff.
Oh, the Takei versus Tenshin amateur bout.
Yeah.
Where they had, what was it? 1-1 draw and went nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what Daisuke Sato can do with that.
Oh, we didn't even talk about him. He's doing all the video for this, isn't he?
Well, I think he's
Or is he
listed as
not?
like the director for the Fuji part, but I don't know if he's going to be doing everything, and I hope he's going to be doing everything.
I think he does everything. Historically, he hasn't even actually done most of the Fuji BTRs. Like, he used to be a Fuji employee, I think, or something like that. But then he went independent, so they stiffed him and hasn't broadcast his BTRs. But he's done most of them for the pay-per-view, so it should be, he should probably do the VTRs for most of them, for all of the fights. It's just a question of whether that gets broadcast on Fuji or not.
I mean, I hope he does. If I see the K1 photo studio rented by the hour with 2 chairs, it's over.
Dogman. You have to understand that Takeru has never won a fight he hasn't sat in the leather chair.
He needs that royalty-free nu metal. He needs it. It puts him in the zone.
Oh man, this is like this is gonna be the last thing I say, but I can't remember which crush it was, and I think it was a Hayato Suzuki fight, but the best like shitty crush VTR I ever saw was I think it was him, and he's standing in like one of these rooms that they use for like pre-wedding photo shoots, and he picks up one of the like props they have in the background, and it's like a letter organizer, a holder, and it's a metal horse, and it's stamped on it horses, and he's like picking it up and looking at it like it's some deeply sentimental item, and I could not stop laughing. It was so fucking funny to me. This is, of course, the worst possible way to end 2 hours of your commute or whatever, but thank you to anybody who bothered to listen to all of this.
Alrighty. Oh, sorry. I don't want to add in one last thing, but overall, K1 versus Rise, who's winning? Maybe we might want to get a roundtable vote on that.
Let me count up. I've got it 5-4 K1. I'm not very quick at counting.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I just did 5-4 rides in my hands. So
Same.
I tip it for K1.
Yeah, I tip it slightly for K1.
Okay, so do we think this becomes pro wrestling?
Isn't it already?
okay, true. Yeah,
Last time this happened was Dream versus Sengoku, and they went 5-4 or something like that. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean that's also another scenario. Is like there's a complete clean sweep one way, and then one promotion just gets destroyed overnight. That would be kind of apocalyptic.
I mean, if that happens, the other promotion should just become a feeder league. And I've been advocating for that for as long as I can remember.
You want to see Rise put down again, don't you? You want to see him put in their place.
All I'm saying is that there is no reason for there to be two Major League Japanese kickboxing leagues. And, if there is a hierarchy decided here, it should go to the one with the stronger brand name.
Well, I think Rise El Dorado is stronger branding than the match.
I counter with Schick Ring of Venus ad.
The match is kind of funny. It's like almost like they're getting married or something. You know what I
That's a
mean?
real plot twist.
Yeah. Who knows?
Okay, I think that's the perfect ending. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys. This has been super fun.
Yeah, that was fucking great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I leave it to you, Dogman, to fucking deal with all of that. Have fun.
I look forward to the podcast release on July 24th, 2024.
Yeah.